Siena Schoelen, and I'm in the Department of Speech, Language, and Hearing Sciences. And my project is the relation between working memory and decoding. So just really quick, working memory is the ability to hold information in your mind and manipulate it. So think like mental math, right? If you're multiplying 16 times 17, you have to multiply 6 times 7, hold that in your mind, multiply 6 times the 1. I mean, it's a process. But that uses working memory. And the second part of this is decoding. And decoding is really just being able to sound out words. So the reason I'm looking at working memory and decoding in that relationship is because working memory and decoding, because this is really important for teaching us how people learn to read. So learning to read is important for a lot of reasons, like academics, but also just for life. I mean, imagine if you were driving to school and you couldn't read the street signs, or you go out to breakfast and you can't read the menu. So, this is really critical for, a significant amount of people. I think about things like dyslexia. And so my research is just trying to understand the relationship better. So the things I'm going to cover today are what working memory is, learning to read and decoding, the importance of this research in this area, and just a little bit about the methods that I'm using. So first off, what is working memory? So working memory is a limited capacity system that holds and manipulates information for cognitive processing. It's kind of a lot, but think about what I said earlier, holding information and being able to manipulate it. So that's basically what it is. But there are kind of some things I want to take out of this. First, the limited capacity. So working memory isn't infinite. You can only hold about 7 items in your working memory. And also, there's a subtlety to this, manipulating and holding information in your mind, is that you have to pay attention to things to do that. So working memory is also part of bringing things to the forefront of your mind so that you can work with them. So there are some parts to working memory. There's a task manager, and this is what I was talking about with attention. This is the thing that directs attention. And it directs attention to what you hear and what you see. And then there's storage for each of those things, what you see and what you hear. So like I'm talking to you right now. You are getting, your central executive, your task manager is directing your attention towards what I'm saying, at least I hope so. And then your hearing storage and your visual storage are taking in the slides and what I'm saying. So learning to read. Right, so working memory is important for a lot of things. I know we talked about mental math. It's also important for following instructions, which kind of, if you're a kid in the classroom, being able to listen to what people are saying and follow along. It's also important for doing mental math and learning to read. So reading is one of the most important things a child will learn in school. Reading opens up the way for academic success. I mean, if you can't read in school, what are you really going to do? I mean, think about all the assigned reading we have in our classes. So, we read automatically, but for a lot of people, that's, it's not true, and it's hard. So, to be able to, reading, sorry, for one thing. So, reading is actually more difficult than you'd think. So, almost every person learns to talk, right? We all have to talk. But reading has to be taught to you explicitly. We're not born with reading. That has to be taught to you. So to do that, you have to comprehend and decode. So comprehension is just being able to understand what you're reading, knowing what the content means. And decoding is being able to sound out the words and knowing what they are. So, but you can't have comprehension without decoding. So this word, for example, placac. So I decoded that word. I put the sounds together and made it into a unit. I don't know what that means, so I'm not actually reading. So that was decoding. And so decoding, when you decode, you have to hold each of the sounds in your mind as you move along. The ek, ak. So that's working memory right there. And then you also have to bind the sounds and the written letters. So I couldn't sound that out if I didn't know that the sound goes with this arbitrary squiggle on page. So that's really an important part of this. And so in my research, I'm looking at typical developing children to determine how working memory is related to decoding and reading in general. So the analogy that I came up for this was you have two people and they've been friends for a really long time. And then you have like a nosy older sister. And she wants to know, like, are they more than friends? Are they dating? And so as a researcher, I'm kind of like that. I'm like a nosy older sister. I want to know what exactly is the relationship between these two things. You know, I know that they're friends, but is there more going on? How much? What is the exact correlation here? And so this research is important because reading is important. So reading opens up the way for academic success. Learning to read sets you up for school, sets you up for life. And, you know, we don't even really think about it. Like, we read automatically. Like, did you know that once you're a skilled reader, you can't not read? Like, since all of you can read. Like, you see this word and you can't help but read it. But for a lot of people, reading just doesn't come that quickly. So, like people with dyslexia, also other kinds of reading disabilities, people with working memory problems, even some populations within autism. And they can struggle to read things simple as a grocery list, or a textbook, or a text. So, you know, this research is important because it's helping us understand that relationship so we can better help children and people learn to read, succeed in school, and just like help them with everyday life. So it's been shown that children who are poor readers at an early age continue to be poor readers later on. And you know, this relationship that I've been talking about between reading and working memory, it's not just seeing like in theory, it's also seen in practice. So children with reading disabilities and autism spectrum disorder both showed impairments in phonological working memory, and they both have difficulty with reading. So, but one of the things about my project is that to really study this thoroughly, you need to separate the different components of reading, which are comprehension and decoding. And so my study focuses on decoding. And to measure that, I used, it's called the DDM, but basically it's a non-word reading task. And so a non-word is something that follows the rules that any other English word would, but it doesn't mean anything. So an example would be name, highs, math, spend. Yeah, I think that's one of them. Anyway, and so basically I show like this form to the kids and I have them read it. What's really cool about this though is that, so you know how I said that reading has to be taught? Well, a kid can perform really bad on this simply because they never had the instruction, not because they don't have the ability. And so the reason we use this particular measure is because you test them, and then if they don't do well, you teach them, and then you retest them to see if they have that, if they actually have that ability. And then the other thing is the measure of working memory. And so this task, it targets the skills that you would expect from people who have fully functioning working memory. So we have like a digit span task. So we rattle off 3 digits, 4 digits, 5 digits, and see how far the kids can go. And that's getting at memory for things that you hear. We also have a location span task, and it has a bunch of arrows on a page, and the kids have to point out, like they see a series of them, like I said, 3, 4, 5, and they have to point to where the arrows were. And then we also have an end back task, which targets like the task manager I was talking about. So an end back task is basically like the kids get a string of numbers, but then they have to say them backwards. That requires a certain amount of processing. So that's why it's the target for the task manager. But these games are really fun and good for kids because we make them like pirate games. So there's a pirate who says, "Hoy, matey, we're going to be playing some games today." And they win coins and stuff like that, and then we give them like little toys afterwards. So it all works out. But anyway, so from this research and using this data that I just talked about, I'm hoping to better understand the relationship between working memory and decoding, and inform teachers, parents, speech therapists on ways to help children learn to read